Welcome back to another reading and collecting of Stepping Up with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. Today we are doing Chapter 68. Are you sure we can't get closer? Karina asks. They've sensed ahead at all the people there and on the roofs. I had roofs for all the people there. He had no idea how many people Sebastian had, but it seemed like they were all here. Tibs had Tibs had found the dog in the inn. This morning when Jekyll shrieked and jumped on the bar, pointing at whatever that touched his leg. Tibs had never seen this dog, and he had no idea how Sarba trained it to go to Jekyll when she hadn't been near the inn, but it was one of hers. The caller made that clear, as did the message tucked under it. It's happening today. So they had pulled everyone they could spare from the patrols, in case this was a diversion, and had taken position to intercept what Sebastian was bringing in. Now, Tibs was uncertain they could do it. There's people for... where's my cursor? There's my cursor. There's people... This is something I will do a lot sometimes. Flip phrasing around, and I won't see it just reading. Reading out loud is when I see it. There's people at every road and alley, and in the alleys, platform. Or thick. There aren't as many archers on the roofs, but there's still too many. Then it's got to be important. Tibs nodded. That was why everyone agreed Sebastian couldn't keep it. But was it worth sacrificing runners for? Tibs was happy he wasn't the one making that decision. Jekyll and Quigley were the ones who'd make it. All Tibs and Kirino had to do was wait for the signal, like everyone else. I'm going to the roofs to get a view of the platform. Is that safe? She asked. You said there was a lot of archers. He rolled his eyes. They're on my roofs. You aren't going to see me. He was 2 stories up the wall before she voiced further objections. They were far enough. None of the archers noticed him crawled along the roof until he was behind the chimney. Then he checked and noted. When he checked, he noticed that even though they were on the roofs, they were looking down at the ground. Typical. Found a handful of rogues who'd taken position and were scanning the rooftops. Tibs gave him an acknowledgement signal, and he returned it before moving closer to the platform. By the time he could see it in the valley of a roof between 2 of Sebastian's archers, who'd been so focused on the street under their house, Tibs knew he was by the time he could see it in the valley of a roof between 2 of Sebastian's archers, another place where I did it. Tibs knew it was arriving. I don't need to say that I've already established that. So the essence shifted over the empty platform and people appeared. A lot of people. At least 3 and 0 of them, and at least that same number of those guarding the platform taking position by the steps. Those in the center bent down as those around them formed into a mirror of those by the stairs, weapon drawn, lined up on each side. And now he saw the long crates, 8 of them held between them. It was as long as two Jackal's height, as broad as 3 of him, and thick enough 2 of them could fit. He sensed it to have an idea of what was inside and frowned as what he got was muddled, blurred as if he was looking at it from many windows, each distorting the image further. There was earth in the crate, he could tell that. There was air, water, and fire, but he couldn't figure out what had more of, and after that he couldn't tell what the essences were through the distortions. He watched them walk down, waiting for the signal to come, and relieved when it didn't. He didn't want. He watched them walk down and away, waiting for the signal to come, and relieved when it didn't. He didn't want his people to die needlessly. He watched as most of Sebastian's people followed after the crate, trying to work out what could cause essence to be distorted. He sensed runners followed at a distance. Maybe they'd have a chance along the way, but Tibs didn't think so. Sebastian wasn't taking a chance with us. I've got chance twice. I'd like to replace one of them. Maybe they'd get an opening along the way. But Tibs didn't think so. Sebastian wasn't taking a chance with us. He waited until there were only 2 archers left, both watching the platform instead of the streets, before crawling back to the edge of the roof. With all the thugs on the street getting back to the inn would, the essence of the platform shifted, and Tibs ran for the front, throwing himself off the roof. He hoped someone stayed behind to deal with the archers. He rolled and wrapped his essence over the bruises and ran. The people took form as he reached the steps, one wearing the golden robe of the attendants, and the other dark purple sorcerer's robe. Tib's heart sank. He was never going to hear the end of this one. The end of this. A yell came from a small building to the side of the platform, just beyond the column. It was where the attendants went when they weren't needed. An archer stood on a roof as the attendant and Dawn looked in the direction of the person yelling. The sorcerer snapped in Tibs' direction, and the annoyance turned into anger. Then Tibs collided with him and the attendant. The attendant screamed in pain before they were on the ground. "Get off me!" Dawn ordered, shoving Tibs off. "There are archers shooting at anyone who arrives," Tibs said. "The arrows have poison in them that makes it hard to focus." "Do you take me for—" His expression turned to shock, then he raised a hand. Tibs sensed the corruption form, then weave into a mesh over them. Something splashed on Tibs' back, something being eaten away by corruption. Dawn's expression of superiority went away as he looked at Tibs' back. "I did not just save your life," he cursed. Or even then, Tibs got to his feet and pulled the attendant up, making a wrap around the wound. "We need to get to safety before they shoot again." The weave of corruption stayed between them and the archer, and something splashed on the ground next to Tibs, metal melting away. The wooden shaft was already destroyed. "I'm not saving you," Dawn said. "I'm protecting her." Tibs didn't care. As they reached the building, 2 attendants grabbed her, and Tibs and Dawn followed them inside. "What are you doing here?" Tibs demanded. The 2 attendants were the only ones in the room. There was a table with dice on it, half a dozen cots and chairs. "Have you been staying here since Sebastian started shooting at anyone arriving? What did they feed themselves?" There were a few chests. There were a few chests by the cots. Oh no, the few chests by the cots couldn't contain enough food to last them this long. They were normal. Felt the essence shift and turn in time to see the arrow in the attendant's shoulder vanish in a golden glow. "We're here to make sure returning attendants aren't killed," the one standing said, handing a bottle to the one seeing to the injured. "Shouldn't you be more worried about the person they're bringing?" Don demanded by the partially open door, maintaining his weave. "We're the one paying you, after all. You're not paying us anything." Tibbs undid the wrap. By the purity in the bottle, it would heal her. "Any of us who die weakens our organization, so we rotate who is on watch, so we're ready to act." You call yelling something like we couldn't understand acting? Don said with a snort. If not for me, you should be dead. What do you mean, rotate? Tibbs asked. The man looked at Tibbs as if he was an idiot. You think the two of us are only ones here? And that we've been staying here? Listening wasn't what this man was good at, it was decided, but didn't comment. Then how do you come and go without getting shot? Void is our element. Space means nothing to us. All we need to do is think ourselves somewhere. Then why is that thing there? Why is that thing here then? Dunn demanded. Because it's one thing to think myself around this town, it's another to think myself across the world with passengers. The platform links all the other ones and gives us a template to use for where we need to go. So, for you to go from here to somewhere in the town is the same as you going to another town, except that the distance means you need the platform? He was asked, hoping he was understanding this correctly. Didn't you listen? I just said the platform. Yes, I did listen. He ignored the fact the fact that Jackal hadn't told him about this. Okay. The fact that Jackal hadn't told them about. Oh, he ignored what the fact that Jekyll hadn't told him about this implied of the attendant's actions since this started. Seemed anyone with power over the others wasn't interested in helping them. You said passengers when you first talked about the platform. Is that because you can't move people with you without it, or also because of the distance? What was going to change that? You do not listen, do you? Of course I can move people without it. The platform, why are you grinning like that? Because you just saved my town, whether the attendant wanted it or not. Don preened under the congratulation of how he'd convinced the attendants to help in taking town folks still trapped out of those dangerous area. He'd proclaimed it the instant they stepped in the inn and had smiled at Tibs, defying him to call him out. He hadn't. I'm actually going to change that. He hadn't. It wasn't like Don had simply stood by while Tibs talked. The only thing Tibs was able to do was get the attendant to summon their local leader, who was the person Tibs had to convince if he wanted their help. The three there wanted to help. They made that clear. So clear Tibbs had trouble believing them, but the organization as a whole had to come first. The woman was a leader with a hard face and demanding golden eyes, who scoffed at any mention of the greater good for the town, instead referring to what the runners did as playing hero, and that the only thing that came of that was death, and she couldn't afford to lose anyone if the attendants were to remain independent. And what will the attendants letting the town be taken over will do to your reputation? What will the attendants letting the town be taken over do for your reputation? Don had asked so casually it reminded Tibbs of old Granston. What will anyone think when they find out the attendants didn't find out the attendants can't keep the people they bring to a town safe? Or do you think no one will mention how you're willing to let us be shot in favor of covering your asses? Tibbs had moved next to him and whispered a few pieces of information he now realized were relevant. Or how you never bothered verifying the intent of the people you bring to a town, or what they're bringing that will end up causing trouble? Or are you going to claim you weren't complicit when the criminals who paid you to come here to gain control of our towns are exposed? Tibbs was going to ask what turned out asked Karina what complicit meant as soon as he saw her, because that had been the word that caused the leader to give in. He left Dawn to his now adoring public and headed for his stable, where Jekyll and Quigley were glaring at each other. Tell him, Jekyll said on seeing Tibs. Tell him what? Tell that over-pissed filled good for that over-pissed filled good for nothing coward. We could have taken them. I didn't hear you giving the signal, Quigley replied. The deal was we had to agree, Jekyll snapped, and I respect my deals. Tibs could see Quigley didn't believe that any more than Tibs knew it to be false, which meant this was about pride. Or the impression of pride, which actually Tibs didn't always know which part was an act and which was really who his friend was. Sometimes he wondered if Jekyll knew either. I don't think we could win, he said, especially not after all those people arrived. Did any of them have essence? I doubt it, unless Sebastian can afford adventurers willing to take on the guild. The guilty look Jekyll gave Tibs wasn't missed by Quigley either, but the warrior didn't bring it up. Then Jekyll looked away, and he was angry again. What lie has he told? Jekyll pointed to the sorcerer. What lie has he told to get that treatment? Don had people laughing around him and keeping him from noticing Jekyll. Tibs told the fighter what had happened after everyone left the platform, but he knew. But the news, Don wasn't actually lying when he said he'd convinced the attendants. Did nothing to make Jekyll feel better. Did nothing to improve Jekyll's mood. And I've started flipping those letters now. You realize that before the day's over, he's going to think he's in charge, right? Is that a bad thing? Quigley asked. He raised a hand to keep Jekyll from yelling his protest. Take it from me, a guy who was in charge of a big battle and lost. Having your enemy think someone else is in charge can be a good thing. Father's never going to believe he is in charge, Jekyll said. He isn't that dumb. And Don's going to get more people killed than my father has. He doesn't give a fuck about anyone in this town. He cares, Tibs said, but he wants people to know he helped them. And keeping someone like that from causing problems just means being there to advise them when needed, the warrior said. You realize that means being within touching range of the guy with corruption at his fire. You realize that means being within touching range of the guy with corruption at his fingertips, Jekyll replied. You do remember what that feels like, right? Wait before answering? He headed to the bar and returned with 3 tankards. Thought they were out, Quigley said, making a face after taking a sip. My man has his reserve. Jekyll looked at in the tankard. Not that there's any of the good stuff left there either. Tibs missed good ale. I think we can guide him to help us make Sebastian leave, he said. The statement caused the 2 others to stare at him. He has the one element that can get us through all the protection Sebastian has on his house. Jekyll looked at the sorcerer speculatively, while Quigley simply looked confused. Corruption affects the other element, he said. That's how those who tried to kill him got into the dungeon. The corruption ate through the door, which was supposed to be impossible to damage. My father's got all sort of enchantment on his house because he's paranoid about his safety, Jekyll took a long swallow. You know that plan is going to make Dawn unbearable to be around. That man's a coward, Quigley stated. He will never agree to put himself in danger like that. Jekyll snorted. You have no idea what the stupid shit someone will do for pride. He looked at Tibs. But that isn't the entirety of your plan, is it? He shook his head, but didn't elaborate. You realize that getting there might be more impossible than convincing Don leading the charge will mean he's the hero of Craggle Rock now. Tib nodded. What if you can't manage it? Do you want me to leave so you don't have to be cryptic? Wrigley asked, annoyed. Would you? Jekyll replied sweetly. We can talk about the rest later, Jekyll. Tib said. One thing we need to figure out is how much of the town folks still live around Sebastian. Around Sebastian's house, we can't ask the attendant to just go around without knowing what to expect. Jekyll looked at the warrior, quickly sighed. I can have people get that information. You two do know that keeping stuff from your allies is rarely a good thing. This falls in the we don't have much of a choice category, Quig. Jekyll said. Yeah, the warrior stood. I get that. But trust me when I tell you, if you aren't careful, those secrets can turn into knives planted in your back. And that concludes chapter 68. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to read the story, you can do that on Royal Road for free. If you want to support me and read further ahead of Royal Road, you can do that on my Patreon. And if you want to listen to me do these live, it's on Twitch every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.